I jumped on Twitter this morning and could not believe my eyes. Let me show you what I was looking at. See if we can find. There we go. Let's pull Twitter up. Trending in the United States. This is over on the right-hand side. Elizabeth Montgomery, the star of Bewitched. But this was a show that debuted in the 60s, ran into the early 70s. So it's been a long time, 50 years since this program was on primetime television. But here she is in all her glory, Elizabeth Montgomery, trending on Twitter. Let's find out why. All right, let me click over here. Elizabeth Montgomery. What are we going to get? Oh, I love that post. And let me make this just a little bit bigger so everybody can see the same things I'm seeing. Does that help? A little bit, I guess. All right, Amanda Softstar says, my dad had a huge crush on her when he was a kid. You all recognize her? And then Alec Goodlad said, sees Elizabeth Montgomery trending, Googles to see if she died, learns she died 27 years ago. Yeah, an informative and emotionally complicated 10 seconds. Todd Alcott said, killing Hitler is nice, but if I had a time machine, I'd cancel the pilot for Bewitched just to see how Elizabeth Montgomery's career panned out without it. Interesting. Let's click on these pictures real quick. She's such a beautiful lady. What Todd is saying is that she was a beautiful, charismatic actress, a very talented actress, daughter of Robert Montgomery, who maybe got a little bit typecast in her role of Samantha Stephens on Bewitched. Let me give you just a little bit of a refresher course on the television program. Bewitched was classic TV. I grew up watching this show. I must admit, mostly on reruns in the early to mid 70s. And more specifically, I'd watch it mostly whenever I would play hooky from school. You know, I'd pretend to be sick so that I could stay home and watch TV. You did that too, right? Anyway, I would always make sure that Bewitched was on my list of must-see TV for that day. During its original run, 8 seasons on ABC, it was both a critical and ratings hit, although ratings did die down a bit towards the end. The reason for the show's success was the stellar cast. Elizabeth Montgomery was great, but so was Dick York as Sam's beleaguered husband Darren. I should say Darren number 1. Also, Agnes Moorehead was phenomenal as Samantha's disapproving mother. A witch marry a mere mortal? Unheard of! And I absolutely loved Paul Lynde as Sam's Uncle Arthur on this show. And I have to say, I loved the episodes where Montgomery played 2 roles, Sam and her extremely crazy hippie cousin Serena. Those episodes were tons of fun and allowed Montgomery to really let loose and show off her wild side. And of course, during those later seasons, we had Dick Sargent take on the part of Darren, a role that he'd originally been offered but had passed on, instead working on a series that only lasted 1 season. What a mistake that was. So that's it. What do you think? Were you a fan of Bewitched the way I was? Share your memories in the comment section below. And while you're at it, I'd love a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I would be honored if you would consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. I talk about music, movies, and television, mostly from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching. There you go. In a minute and a half or so, everything you needed to know. Well, not everything, but a lot of good information about Bewitched. So let's go back over to Twitter here. Let's get over there. We've got Keith Olbermann saying, since Elizabeth Montgomery's trending, 30 years ago this month, I was reading a Lizzie Borden book as I waited for our LA-bound flight to board. From the aisle, a familiar voice said, Keith, you're reading about me. Lizzie Montgomery introduced herself like I didn't know. Love that. Now, for those who didn't know, Elizabeth Montgomery starred in a movie about Lizzie Borden, and that appears to be one of the promotional photos from that. Here's a post about Agnes Moorehead and Elizabeth Montgomery. Elizabeth Montgomery and the Legend of Lizzie Borden, 1975, still the best version ever filmed. Lilac and Gooseberry says, I don't know why she's trending, but let the record show that Elizabeth Montgomery was baffling hot in this. This is a picture from The Twilight Zone, an episode where she starred with Charles Bronson. I can't remember the name of the episode. Maybe someone here knows. Two-person post-apocalyptic Twilight Zone. No one's saying the name of it. Two. There you go. It was Two. Great episode of the Twilight Zone with Elizabeth Montgomery. Jen S. says, funny that Elizabeth Montgomery is trending. I'm actually watching Bewitched. The best episodes were with Paul Lynde. What a talent that man was. Yep, there she is as Cousin Serena as well. Wacky, crazy Cousin Serena. The way my girl Elizabeth Montgomery just popped up in the trends. That's from Jermaine. She was always a hottie. That's from Tenacious Tia. DKT says, Battle of the Superpowers. Who you got? Retweet for Elizabeth Montgomery. Like for Jenny. Looks like Elizabeth's losing right at the moment. Elizabeth Montgomery is trending, and suddenly I'm in the 60s. Ahmed Al-Tunis says, so I was searching for something on Twitter, saw that Elizabeth Montgomery was trending, clicked and went down this rabbit hole. And now I can't remember what it was I was searching for. How often does that happen? Happens to me a lot. Book Convos wants to know why she's trending. Well, you better call Dr. Bombay. And Razzle Dazzle says, anyone with a pulse growing up in the 90s knew who Elizabeth Montgomery was, one of the greatest leading ladies in all of television. Music Woman said, I saw Elizabeth Montgomery trending tonight. Made me feel good. You know, and that's one of the things about the show Bewitched and shows like that from the late 60s, early 70s. They were just designed to make one feel good, to allow one to escape. That's why I call that era of television the good stuff. You know, TV from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s. They didn't seem to have much of a social or political agenda. They were designed to entertain. So I'm wondering why Elizabeth is trending. It doesn't appear that there's any real reason. Sometimes this happens on Twitter, and you know what? I'm glad that it does. Just a little nostalgic stroll down memory lane regarding one of my favorite actresses.